Are you videoing me? Are you videoing me?
No.
Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3. Betta fish. If you want to put it in a half-a-gallon tank, you want to put your male beta in a half-a-gallon tank, it's gonna die in less than 6 months' time. I can guarantee you that. There's a lot of myths that revolve around owning betta fish. They're also known as Siamese fighting fish. One is that they can live in less than a 5-gallon tank. And there are so many times where it's advertised they can live in a gallon or half-a-gallon tank. Not true. Typically, per betta fish, you want at least 5 gallons. If you're going to have multiple betta fish in one tank, which is a whole nother story, you need to have at least 10 per fish. Males typically cannot be housed together. That is a very real stigma with betta fish, but females can live together. This is something particular that you have to make sure that you're careful about. Every fish is different. Some are more aggressive than others, so whenever you're trying to make we call them sorority tanks with female bettas, you want to make sure that they are compatible and they're not aggressive towards other fish. This is a long drawn out story. If you can't even keep a 10-gallon tank, then you probably should not try that. As for male fish, the males can be housed with other types of fish sometimes. I do have snails in my tank. I have done this before with other fish. The trick is, if you're going to put other fish in there, they need to not have large fins. They get very showy. So you don't want to have a small fish with big fins, because he's going to attack that animal, be like, you're going to compete with me. I'm not doing this. I'm going to kill you now. Yeah, not a cute standard, but at the same time, they're fish. Typically smaller fish, not so small that they can swallow them. Their mouths are very small, but again, you know, shrimp. You have shrimp with betta fish, and betta will eat them. So it's all a very tricky situation. Again, if you're not experienced in betta fish, you probably shouldn't try it. Bettas are native to Southeast Asia. They are typically found in marshes, floodplains, and rice paddies. So basically, they live in these little puddles and jump from puddle to puddle. Or when it floods, you know, they get to go to a different habitat. That's the thing about keeping them in 1 gallon. Oh, they can live in a puddle. Yeah, but you can't filtrate a puddle very well. So that's why they jump and they move and they migrate. They're still migratory animals. They still need space for their own self to be happy and to live in a nice environment. They pee and poop a lot. Fish pee and poop a lot. It's gross. But it needs to be cleaned. Otherwise, the pH will be messed up and they'll die. There are many things about cleaning the tank. It's very important. Animals poop a lot, and since I have not only snails and fish in there, I do have plants in there. It's very important to clean the tank regularly. So what you want to do is take a siphon. You'll have a little bucket underneath the tank and feed the siphon water into the bucket. It's pretty easy to do. It's kind of, you know, therapeutical in a sense, because you're therapeutic. It's nice to see all that gunk go away. If you are not cleaning your tank, you can get diseases. Your fish can die, especially with betta fish. When they get really stressed out, they start eating at their tail. They get split fin, fin rot, things like that. So you need to make sure that your tank is nice and clean. You should also be checking on your filter every time you do a tank cleaning, which I try to do once a month. You should also be cleaning your filter. Now, you can't just put your filter under the you know, sink water and let the tap water run into it. You can only clean your filter in your dirty tank water, because we're going to have to worry about chlorine at that point. So make sure you put it in the bucket. You can make your own filter. I do this a lot. You just have your own charcoal, you have your own little filter pad fabric, and you put the new charcoal in there and sew it up like a little pocket. It's not challenging. It's better for me to just make my own. It's more affordable, and I can sustain a tank very well knowing what I'm doing. If you're interested, let me know. I'll make a video about that. With live plants, again, like I've said in the past, I really like to have live plants in my terrariums to make it as natural as possible for the animal. Now, the tricky thing about plants, you can try to not have CO2 in there. I've never been successful with this, and I'm sure that some people have. I've kept like one plant like barely alive without CO2 in there, but I've added a CO2 tank to my aquarium, and my live plants have been amazing growing. They're very happy. You know, the plant life is happy, the fish are happy, the snails are happy. That's a good aquarium. There are some plants that can sustain themselves without CO2. Bologna. So I've added CO2. You also need to have oxygen in there. If you can see the bubble stream in the back. I do have a little bubble bar back there for oxygen. You need to be supplementing with oxygen. You need to be supplementing with CO2. Otherwise, all of the fish and plants and other animals are going to be taking up all of those things. The plants can't survive, the fish can't survive, you have a failing tank. Another thing to consider with live plants is that you should have UVA and UVB light. If you can see on the top of my tank, I do have a light up there. It is mainly meant for reptiles. I got it at a reptile show, so it's still the same concept when you're trying to keep plants alive. This will get into algae, which we'll talk about here in a second. Another thing that you should consider, especially with your type of fish that you own and the filter that you buy, you need to make sure that the filter speed is appropriate for your fish. So, you know, we do have catfish that are stream catfish, and they like fast moving water, whereas we have bettas that prefer a slower moving water. I do have a lot of activity going on in my tank, but the filter is something that you can turn down and up, and it kind of combats the way the bubbles are going, so the circulation kind of keeps the water slow and not moving too much. If you can't see, I do have a little net here too, just for a little area where if he doesn't want to do anything at all and he just wants to stay still, he has that little spot. But you should make sure whenever you buy your fish, no matter what the case is, you research exactly what type of water they do like to be in, whether it be fast or slow moving, and make sure that you build a tank based on that. I know it's fun, I know it's exciting. Buy a fish that you're willing and wanting to have a fun aquarium with. Don't just buy a fish because you want the fish. As for algae, so again, you know, you've got all these live plants, things like that. And we have the UVA, UVB light. So with that comes algae. Algae grows really easily in tanks. The best way to combat that is with snails, and with different types of snails. Every species of snail has a different algae they like to eat. I currently have 3 different types of snails in my tank. So I have rabbit snails, narite snails, and this one other snail I need to figure out the name of, but I've had him the longest, and I haven't been able to decipher his shell. Anywho, they do a really good job of cleaning the tank. It's super important to have that. I have had oysters before, which are amazing in keeping the tank clean. If you have any questions about that, I would totally love to make a video on that. Oysters are amazing. Very underrated. People don't want to talk about oysters a lot, but you know, they only have a lifespan of like 6 months to 2 years maybe, it depends on the species. But they're great for filtering nasty junk out of the water. There are some invasive species of snails that will take over your tank and will reproduce too quickly, and you cannot extract them. When it comes to snails, there are different types of snails. So snails can reproduce on their own typically. There are invasive species. I do have a rabbit snail in there that does produce a lot of babies. The betta fish seems to like to eat them, so it's not a huge problem for me. But rabbit snails reproduce very, very easily. With one snail, you're in trouble. Invasive snails can really take a toll on the environment, so make sure you understand what you're doing whenever you get one. Nerite snails are a very non-invasive species, which is why I have 3 of them. They're awesome species. They don't reproduce a lot. I mean, you can have them reproduce, but luckily mine just don't. Betta fish are tropical fish, so they need temperatures that are between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. So you will have to get a heater for the tank in order to keep your tank tropical. No matter, I live in Texas, and typically, like, you know, the heat is going to keep it pretty toasty, but not the case. Regulating water is kind of challenging, so you'll need to get a heater in order to regulate that temperature, make sure it is ideal. I do have a thermometer here just to make sure what's going on in the tank and to know exactly what the temperature is. Anywho, I hope you guys are staying safe out there. I hope you guys are able to have a social life and normal life outside of your home. And I hope that you are wearing masks and washing your hands. Thanks for watching. Hello. Stop! Stop! Shut up! I just need one piece of this video. Please just shut up. Betta fish require temperatures of 68 to 72 degrees. So you need to have a heater in your tank. Betta fish need calories.
Those beta fish need those carbohydrates and calories. Carbohydrates and calories.
Stop! Stop it! Stop! You're in the middle of my light. Can you move out of my light? Move out of the light. Stop! Stop! Oh my god, stop it. Betta fish need to live in a tank with 62. Stop! No, 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. So you have to have a heater in the tank.
Or they'll die.
I hate you.